everybody. Welcome to another sensational session of Strike a Chord Live podcast with my dear brother, Collin Harbour. He's right there in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. I'm Marcus Ellis. I'm here in Pensacola, Florida. Collin, why don't you tell him who we are?
We are two lifelong friends with a love of baseball, music, motivation, and inspiration mixed with a little bit of nostalgia, culture, transformation, and fun. And we want you to take the journey with us.
This is Strike a Chord Live podcast. Well, good morning. That music kind of stopped. Great.
What's that?
Great. That music kind of stopped abruptly. That was different.
I'm still amazed. Every time it works, I'm still amazed that technology,
It worked well, man. So what is going on? Today is July 19th, 2023. How are things in DFW for you, man?
They're good, but it's getting really hot. Not to be an old man and talk about the weather. I think it was like 106 or 107 yesterday, which is a little bit, you don't reach that temperature very often. A lot of times there's 45 days above 100. But when you start to get to like 106 and when you walk outside, it's just like everything's just kind of quiet. Everybody's just kind of moping around.
Yeah, man, we see you. Hey, Wesley D. Maloney, I love you. Good to see you. She's all the way up there in Maine. I know it's probably hot in Maine, but I bet it's beautiful right now in Maine. But yeah, I saw that you guys were really up there. I see you, Susan James. Man, Jim Cusack's is here. Love you, bro. Good. Love you, Susan. Who else is here? Louise McGrath. Love you. Good to see you. Yeah, man, it's been really hot here too. But we just went through, we always talk about the weather. We are old, but we went through a ton of rain, and I'm just grateful. We needed it, but I'm grateful it stopped because I was about to start building an ark. It was nuts.
Yeah, the rain is always good. The older you get, again, the more you realize that maybe something gets canceled or maybe something happens. But man, when it rains, it just kind of, it kind of rebalances everything. It resets everything.
Or creates just a natural sauna out there, as they say. But see you, Peggy Osman, our biggest and most favorite supporter. Peggy is always here. We love you. Good morning. Well, so, this topic that we came in, Wesley says, Maine is humid and haven't seen the sun in over 2 weeks. It's really hard. Lots and lots of rain and fog. Wow. Crazy.
Oh, there was some bad storms up there. That's true. They did have they're up in the flood, and there was some flooding, and maybe in Maine some too, but in Vermont, I think maybe, and some of the up there, but yeah.
Well, while we're doing this, I can see I'm getting texts from our dear sister, Heather Carter, that is Bruce Pulver's partner, and may I have a word with you? I saw, so she's texting too, but anyways, so the topic today is, ways to handle or deal with disappointment or, things that didn't work out the way you thought they were going to work out, So I told you I had a real estate deal that was going to be a monster real estate deal. That's not a monster real estate deal anymore. It's still a deal. It's still out there. And it could have ruined my day yesterday, but I didn't let it, So, let's talk about ways to handle that. You said you're a pro at this. You said this happens often.
Oh, man, I'm absolutely a pro. I was president at Workman Middle School. I was president at Lakewood Junior High. I was on the senior cabinet at Northeast High School, but I'm not I was pledge. I was president of my pledge class. But for some reason, I'm not president of the United States. After that line of that chain of presidencies should have led straight to the Oval Office, and it didn't.
Well, I'm gonna challenge you. Would you please run for president? I would vote for you in a heartbeat.
So one of my friends, we'll get back to the topic. One of my friends that I went to Baylor with, his dad actually ran for president in the 80s. He was a third party candidate, maybe an independent.
It wasn't Ross Perot, was it?
No, it wasn't Ross Perot. It was before Ross Perot.
Right.
Higginbotham was the last name. I actually don't know. I don't remember his dad's name because I didn't really know him, but I kind of heard the story a couple of times that, Andrew's dad ran for president back in the, 80s.
He was in oil.
No, right? I didn't. But anyway, so disappointment, huh?
Was he an oil guy?
I don't think so. I don't know what their family history of business is, but I don't think they might have been oil. I don't remember. I hadn't talked to him like 30 years.
I want to acknowledge Summer Star. Good morning. Good to see you, Summer. We love you. Thank you for being here. She's been a guest on our session before, but yeah, let's get into the meat and potatoes. We don't have much time. Let's go.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes. So right before we got on this, I had a pop-up on my phone that said, Goldman Sachs misses earnings expectations because of this and this. And I thought that was appropriate because of our topic, right? Because in our life, we're not Goldman Sachs. We don't just get to go, all right, we missed our earnings expectations and maybe lay off a couple of thousand people and then we'll see you next quarter, right? When we miss an expectation, it could really impact our life. It could really hurt us, at least emotionally, maybe physically, maybe financially. I mean, you talk about a business deal. I had a business deal that is really good, but it wasn't quite as good as it was supposed to be, right? So it missed expectations. So we're going to talk about how to handle it. And what do you think about that Goldman Sachs setup? It just came over my phone.
Well, God is so good, man. It's just like just drops it right on us when we need it the most. You know, something else that comes to mind is, you know, the band I'm in, White Tie Rock Ensemble, that I'm sporting the hat right now. We had a great show Saturday night at the Pensacola Bay Center, and thank you to everybody who came out and supported us. But we missed the mark big time of how we normally sell tickets, because somebody in Vietnam got our Facebook page, 22,000 followers. Meta said it wasn't, they didn't get our password. They just have ways of getting in. My response to Meta was, well, if you know they have ways of getting in, why didn't you stop them? Right.
Shut it off a little bit. Feel the plug, right?
So, you know, that's our main form of marketing. Of course, we market on the radio. We market on mailing list, email list, things like that. That's not our sole, but it is our main source of marketing. So we were down about 500 to 1,000 tickets for our show. That's a lot of money, you know. But were we, you know, we could have been upset. I mean, we were frustrated with the situation. It still isn't resolved at this point. That's why we're not broadcasting. We have a new White Tie Rock Ensemble Facebook page right now, just so we can get some marketing out there. But man, we had the show of our life. I mean, it was so good. It was so powerful. And the, you know, 2,000 beautiful souls that were in there, we appreciate them and we played our hearts out to them. We could have gone out there and really phoned it in, right? But we didn't. We kind of, you know, so let's start doing the takeaways of how you handle it. It's just one gig, right? Most people go, oh man, one gig. I mean, that could make or break. It could. You know, we have, you know, we put a lot of money back into marketing after that, other than paying ourselves. We have a big band. We have 11 people, 10 to 12 people at a time.
You got an orchestra.
We do. You know,
you got an ensemble.
Quartet. Yeah, the tied up quartet. So, I mean, we have to pay the venue, we have to pay production, the union, insurance, all that kind of stuff. So the money gets gobbled up quick. We could have been downtrodden. We could have walked out on stage disappointed. But is it really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things? No. Right? So when you face those disappointing moments, and I'm not talking about big time things like dealing with a passing of a loved one or something like that. I'm talking about, you know, if you thought you were going to get this gig, you thought you're going to get this job and you didn't, it went to somebody else. Or let's have a fun example. Remember Christmas Vacation? Where
oh yeah, I remember Christmas Vacation. But what's the example?
Well, where Sparky Griswold thought he was going to get this big bonus and get a swimming pool, and he got a
Jelly of the Month Club.
Jelly of the Month Club, yeah. I said fruitcake. Yeah. And what did he do? He went ballistic. Right? But really, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that big of a deal, you know? So that's how we have to look at it. You know, we have to look at it. This is one small, minute moment in our life that when we're at the end of our life and we look back on it, it's really not going to be that big of a deal. And unfortunately, I'm on the, hey, guess what? I love you page. I can't see who that Facebook user is that said that happened to me all year about the job thing. LOL. Would you let us know who you are? Because you're not in the Hey, Guess What? I Love You. I can't tell who you are, but we love you anyways. So that's one of my takeaways, Collin. What about you?
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to the example I was using. Maybe public corporations who have to report their earnings, who have to talk to analysts, maybe they have it right. Hey, you missed your earnings. Put out the press release, make a statement, and move on to the next quarter, right? Move on to the next quarter. And I know it's probably a silly example, but look, we're gonna miss our expectations most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Even perhaps something as simple as you have an exercise goal. I had an exercise goal last night, and it was to exercise. And something else came up, so I didn't exercise, and I was not going to eat dinner. And I had 4 tacos and 2 tostadas because my wife made a great meal last night. So I missed my expectations for what was yesterday, Tuesday.
Well, how do you feel about that? How did you react to that?
Well, I'm still getting through it. I'm still thinking through it. And I know some of these are silly examples, but it can be as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
You were gonna start a diet, instead you find yourself on the couch eating a cupcake. You were gonna invest some money this month, instead you bought a new pair of tennis shoes that you didn't need, or went to Starbucks every day instead of investing the money. I mean, there's so many day-to-day examples of it, much less I wanted to have a job by the end of the quarter, or I wanted to reconcile a relationship, or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about all of that, and then we're going to come up with some solutions. We're in the process of coming up with solutions.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Summer put up a great comment. She said, that happened to her all year about a job, but she knows that God has something better. And that's such a great takeaway that, maybe that particular job or that particular situation or that thing that you wanted so bad, that relationship with that person, maybe that wasn't right for you. Maybe God was protecting you from yourself, and you won't know it till you get down the road. I mean, I had so many relationship speed bumps in my life that I never thought that I'd be where I am now. And look at me. I mean, I've got a beautiful wife. We play music together. We have beautiful children. It's amazing. So all of that time that I wrung my hands, and I know a lot of hand wringers, might have been actually, been bad for my health. It may have taken years of my life from worrying about something. And we go back to that thing I tell Morgan all the time, baby, you're worried about something that'll never happen.
Yeah, and the time you spend and I'm a worrier at the end of the day.
Me too.
And I think everybody probably is, because we're breathing, right? Because we're breathing. Right. But at the end of the day, you worry, and that's time that could be spent resolving the solution, or resolving the issue, and or doing something else. And I'm telling you, I'm guilty about it, man. We've talked about my main business. I have a couple of different businesses, but kind of the one that provides most of me paying my bills and eating all those tacos that I was talking about. We've kind of had some ups and downs the last few years, just like all new businesses do, right? Some months are better than others. Some clients leave, like they said on Mad Men, the day you start the day you sign a client is the day you start losing them, right? So the day you onboard a client, you're going to start losing them. And then sometimes you lose a client, and then sometimes the pipeline's not full enough. We talked about that some, right? A couple weeks ago, I believe. So the pipeline's not full enough. So what do you do? But you know what? All this sitting around and worrying, that's when you can be coming up with solutions, right? You missed your mark, whatever the mark is, whatever your goal is. Sometimes it's just an arbitrary goal anyway. Like you said, who says that was the right goal? Maybe missing the mark was part of the plan.
Man, well, what you said really struck a chord with me, because let's bring another component into this, which I think a lot of people deal with when they have unmet expectations, and that's shame. Like, a lot of people shame themselves silently. They're horrible. They wouldn't talk to anybody else in their immediate circle the way they talk to themselves because they feel shame that they didn't make it to that point. And, you know, our dear sister, Tamara Andrus, who's been on here many times, she wrote a book about shame. Man, you got to let that stuff go. You can't beat yourself up over your failures. We have to learn from them. And part of that, Collin, is our expectations, that we have too lofty of expectations. You know, I mean, let's say that right now, I didn't realize it, but it came across my screen that the Powerball is like at $1 billion or something. I don't usually play that. So let's say you go in and buy $100 worth of tickets with the expectations of winning, and then you don't, something as silly as that, and then you're ashamed that you spent your family's money gambling, right?
Well, you know what? I think the risk reward balance in that one is probably okay, right? Yeah, I mean, spending $2 now, maybe if you spent like $2,000 on the ticket or something.
Well, I said 100.
Well, you spent 100 or you said 100?
I said 100.
Oh,
no, I would never.
You know, to me, it's all, and those are great. You know, those are great points what you're saying. But just kind of sidebar again here. I mean, if I have a chance to buy a $2 ticket or a $5 ticket, I don't even know how much tickets cost to win $1 billion. I probably will buy 2 just in case, because it's all random anyway, right? How do you know that's not part of God's plan for you to win the lottery, right? Well, yeah, you're only going to know if it is or if it isn't if you buy the lottery ticket. All joking aside, the risk reward is okay there in my book.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, our dear sister Tabitha Walls, I love you, Tabitha. Good to see you. She says, let your failures be your stepping stones and keep moving forward. That's so good. And Peggy Gossman says, regret makes one temporarily unable to forgive oneself. You got to have faith. That's what she said.
Yeah, but you know what? That's true. That regret, but both of those are what, you know, let the failures be your stepping stones and keep moving. And regret make one's regret temporarily unable to forgive oneself. It can freeze you, right? It could stall you towards whatever. It could, you know, regret can just dig at you, right? What if I would have done this? What if I would have made that? What if I would have just bought the lottery ticket? I might be a billionaire. What if silly. What if I would have started exercising 6 months ago? I might be ready to run a 10K here in the fall. If I would have started 6 months, just regret will eat at you, right? And it will, as Peggy says, temporarily also make you unable to forgive yourself.
Yeah, great point, Peggy. Well, so we talked about many examples and a couple of takeaways, but you know, some of the things that we can do. I mean, the one as silly as the lottery. You know, seeing the event with too much importance. You know what I mean? If you got to let it go, baby. It's not that big a deal in the scheme of things, right? So something that I do when I start to melt down in those types of situations, I go take a walk. I know you do too. You know, to get out there, get moving, get some fresh air, you know, maybe listen to something, but maybe have your earbuds out and listen to the birds, you know, and appreciate what we call God's paintbrush, the artwork, you know, the beautiful world that we live in. Man, that's a great takeaway. And the other thing is just being grateful for what you already have. You know, there was one point where I was talking to Laura and I was like, oh my gosh, we only have X amount left. And she said, oh my gosh, we have X amount. And I was like, thank you, dear wife, for pulling a Bruce Pulver and turning it around.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know, that I love that, you know, it's about perspective, right? And it's about reset and resetting your mind. But the other thing about regret, the other thing about being upset and stuff like that, like I've got some friends now who are pretty good off at this stage of the game, right? They've had some success at work, maybe had a little bit of hand-me-down on the family type stuff. Maybe they made better decisions 30 years ago on investing and, you know, saving their money and all that kind of stuff. So I've got tons of friends that are like that. And you can't just sit around and go, oh, you know, I can't believe that they've got this, right? And I'm talking about something different, a little bit, maybe jealousy or envious, right? You can't do
That's a
that
good
because
point.
that's like regret. It's going to freeze you. Yeah, it's going to freeze you. But it's the same thing.
You know what that is? And that's man, that's such a great point. That something that we all do, that we all have to put down, and it's that ugly word, comparison. Stop comparing yourself to somebody. You know what I mean? Like I got up there and I had a really good show the other night, but I could look at another singer. Like I got a friend, Manny Cabo. Manny Cabo was on The Voice. I think he almost won. I think he came in second. He's from New York City. This guy can sing, right? But I don't compare myself to Manny Cabo, right? I'm who I am. I've got my gift. He's got his. But if we start comparing, if we keeping up with the Joneses, as we call it, Collin, if we're keeping up with the Joneses, man, all we're doing is setting ourselves up for failure, for unmet expectations, because you're not going to get there because, like you said, you're not in that person's situation. You live in an oil-rich area. You have a lot of oil-bearing friends. Don't you know the people that Dallas was pinned after or something?
Yeah, not the show. Yeah, the guy that I know that I got my MBA with, his dad, Cloyce
Right.
Box, was kind of who JR's character was built around. And he lived on the original South Ranch. After the first couple episodes, they moved it, or South Fork. After the first couple episodes, they moved it to the current, or where actually the rest of Dallas was filmed. But yeah.
Well, so that's it. Comparison. We can eat ourselves up with that, with what somebody else has versus what we don't. We expected to be where they are, but that wasn't a realistic expectation, right? So you brought up such a great point.
Well, and when you think about it, you go to high school with people, or you go to college with people, or some people go to graduate school, law school, medical school, fill in the blank, and then you get out.
Follow the Grateful Dead.
What's that?
Follow the Grateful Dead.
Yeah. Well, anything, right? Anything, whatever the case may be. And then you're kind of here with people. And then, like I said, some people maybe start to do this, and maybe some people catch up. Some people do this, some people catch up. And again, comparison. You know what? If you're comparing to everybody, you're going to lose 95% of the time, right? It's just a waste of time. It's just a waste of time.
Hey, Ryan Little, you're not late. You're right on time, brother. Good to see you. Well, there's Bruce Pulver. We just mentioned your name, and there he pops up. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I think Facebook does that. I think it's like, oh, mention his name.
Yeah. So we're talking about, how to handle disappointment and unmet expectations, Bruce. And, Collin brought up a really good point. We got to put down the comparison. And if you're listening to this and not watching and on the hashtag replay, as the kids call it, we have tons of friends that we like to acknowledge and call out. If you want to be one of those, just pop on live or on the replay and make a comment, and we'll mention your name because we love you. But let's talk about something else. So, like I said, I have this real estate deal. It's not going to be what my partner and I thought it was going to be. It may still be okay. It may still be decent. It still will feed, but it's not what we expected it to be. A lot of people, man, they'll sit on their hands and just mope in it and, just sit in the mire of it. But one of the things that you can do to overcome that feeling is get back on the horse, get back to work right away, and go get another deal, right? That's what you do.
Well, in theory, right? I mean, yeah, but people still,
I'm trying to make you look good. Run with me here.
I know, I appreciate it, but let's talk about reality. I'm not sure I'm finding the right word right now, but I get upset just like everybody else when things go wrong. Let's put it that way. Sure. It's simple. But what you just said should happen, right? You just get back up and you go after it. We've talked about regret here. We've talked about missing your earnings or missing your expectations. We use the Goldman Sachs example of missing their earnings. There are a lot of public companies that are announcing their earnings. They're missing it. And what do? Like I said, well, sometimes they lay some people off, or they come up with a new plan on how they're going to make their mark next quarter, right? Or how they're going to right the ship and how they're going to hit the numbers. And that's how we should apply it in our life too.
Yeah, I agree. Well, in the 5 minutes we have left, Peggy Gosman says, you are not the Lone Ranger, Collin. She's right there in the same boat, well, on the same horse with you. Some more takeaways that we could do is, obviously we learn from the experience, and then we use that knowledge to catapult to the next best thing. But then clarifying the underlying needs of that expectation. Was it really this important? Did I need this? I'm wanting to buy this vintage Hammond B3 organ, and it's going to cost me a few coins, right? If I don't get that organ, did I need it? No. Do I really want it because it's my favorite instrument? Yeah. But if I don't get it, I really shouldn't be disappointed because I don't need it. So we really have to clarify the needs of the expectations, then taking full responsibility for meeting your needs. You do that. Almost, I always picture like when we're beating ourselves up, is the Chris Farley and Paul McCartney thing. That's just the funniest skit ever when he says, do you remember the Beatles? God, you're so stupid. We all do that Chris Farley thing when we don't meet our expectations. It's that shame, that blame, that self-blame, that stuff. We got to let that go. Then something I did yesterday, seek an open dialogue with your partner. Do you talk to Gina about your failures?
No. I don't talk to anybody about my failures. I sweep them under the rug.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Well, and then finally, and the most important thing is setting your expectations to God and only God, right? Praying and confessing that any times you may have put your expectations before God that might not be his will. And we touched on that earlier. But man, that thing that you didn't get, that might not have been God's will. So what are you upset about? He was protecting you for. I firmly believe with the gift that I had I become a real national, worldwide touring rock star, I wouldn't be alive right now talking to you. That didn't happen because I didn't have control of my life at the time, and I would have probably wound up in a hotel room not moving.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, think about it. There's a number of things. I got laid off from a job 5 years ago, got cut, I should say, whatever you want to call it. I got fired from a job 5 years ago. How about that? How about the truth? I got fired. Now I'm kind of tight with the guy who fired me. But anyway, I got fired from a job 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago. But if I wouldn't have been fired, I was traveling weekly on that job, just kind of partying a lot harder, not laid out on, hotel rooms or anything like rock stars, but partying pretty hard, entertaining clients, big dinners, conferences, traveling late nights, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's no telling. So maybe getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, I think so. I mean, the job I left where, I didn't feel respected, I didn't feel appreciated, I didn't feel valued, and I was literally pushed out the door. But I'm so grateful, man. I'm so grateful for that experience because look, I'm now almost 2 years removed from that situation. I can take my daughter to church camp in a minute. I can pick her up from that. I can spend more time with my family. That huge disappointment of not feeling valued, respected, and appreciated, and literally transferred to a department that I had no business being in, that I had no knowledge of. I was literally pushed out the door intentionally. They're like, oh, we're going to save that $100,000, right? Man, it was the best thing that could have happened in my life. So you never know when that thing is happening, if that's God leading you to something greater. And I would think it is. I think in every single situation where you're disappointed or your personal expectations weren't met, that's God just showing you another path.
Mm-hmm.
So
no doubt. I agree.
Is that our key takeaway right there? The mic drop moment. Is that it?
If you think you've missed your expectations, you may not have. You may be going on the right path from that. Right. You may have just been steered toward. You may have just been steered towards the right path.
Yeah. And if you have those unmet expectations, don't beat yourself up. Take a little break and just remember that better things are ahead. We thank you guys so much for being here. All of you guys, Peggy Osmond, Bruce Pulver, Tabitha Walls, all of them. We love you guys to life. We thank you so much. Oh, Michael Huey's here. I love you, Michael. You and Bruce are probably in the same car together. But I love you guys. We'll see you here on Friday for another sensational session of Strike a Chord Live podcast. Peace and chicken grease. We're out. Yeah, you love that.